Hey there, folks. Chris McLean back again with another episode, and I'm here with the amazing Lee Goff. He is your marketing agency coach, and after successfully exiting his agency in 2016, Lee actually suffered a heart attack. I don't know if those two things are related. We'll find out later in the show, but as soon as he was ready, he dove headfirst into creating the world's most comprehensive agency coaching program that focuses on the business side and not the technical side of the agency. And Lee says nothing about building a successful agency that you can be proud of and supports the quality of life your dream. The quality of life you dream of is easy, but with the right tools, tactics, and strategic guidance, Lee can cut years, not months, off of your agency's success journey. And in the end, that really is the only hack. If you want to look at the world of hack, that we can only hack based on people that have been there before us and done the hard work and can sort of show us what corners to cut and what to focus on. So Lee, awesome to have you here, mate. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Chris.
Pleasure. We had to reciprocate. I was on, we're same time, same channel, only on, we're on the opposite side of the screens. Sort of last week when I swung by and dropped by your show. So I appreciate that. And appreciate you dropping by to share some of your wealth of knowledge in the coaching and agency space.
I'm the one that should be thanking you. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to come on this stage. I really do. Really enjoyed our episode too. And my staff came back and has been like, "Oh man, this is a great episode." So they're editing it and they love it. They are falling in love with you. So.
Awesome. That's what we like. And I'm sure we'll have the reciprocated effect on this side too. So let's start at the start, Lee. I'd love to hear about your agency journey, because that's really what the show here is about helping agency owners sort of move through that agency journey, whatever stage they're at. And the exit end is always a really interesting part as well. And then I'd love to get into how you transformed that and you came off of some health concerns and switched into sort of, maybe that was an inflection point where you decided what you wanted to do and you got into coaching, and then sort of what that looks like. So what was your agency all about, and how did you start out in the agency world?
Well, I started my agency in 2003, and similar to you, I think you said in 2002. Yep. And I have to admit, I was like everybody else, I was a wing and a prayer, kind of just figured it out as I went, right? And I ended up being in a highly, like, we were doing very high-end coding, kind of custom web apps kind of stuff, and I was not happy. I'm a marketing guy, and the pain that comes along with that, I didn't want to be set up like that. And so jump ahead to 2008, and at that point I had, I think, 8 to 10 employees, a little shy of $500,000 if I remember correctly. So again, I think by most standards we're an embryonic success, getting started down the right path, and I literally decided to gut the entire company in the middle of the worst financial crisis that we had experienced in our lifetimes. And by the way, now those two things did not have that much, there were parts of the financial crisis that forced me to do it, but it wasn't the main reason I did it. I just wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. And I knew that if I was going to grow my agency, that it had to fulfill my purpose, and that is to level the playing field between big business and small business. At my agency, that's actually what that painting right there is about. My mom painted that for me. And that's exactly what we did. The most powerful tool out there to do that is marketing automation. Obviously, anything cloud-based is a tool to do that. But out of all of those cloud-based tools, by far the most powerful one for small business owners will be the cloud-based CRM that includes automation. And in my particular case, Keep, or as it used to be called, Infusionsoft. So I became a partner and hit the ground running and, jump ahead. From that point, I think 3 or 4 years later, we'd more than doubled in size, and jump ahead a couple of years after that, more than quadrupled in size. At this point, we're running. I can't get into the exact numbers for obvious reasons, but we're a multi-million-dollar agency, and by all standards, the world's largest kind of done-for-you Keep agency on the planet. And I don't know if they still are, but I know when I sold it, they were, but I'm not sure if they still are or not, but I would assume that they are. I don't know why they wouldn't be, but so very, very proud of that, So we brought a lot of amazing automation campaigns and digital campaigns for small business owners across the planet. I think 43 states, 17 countries is where we ended up at the time I sold it. I, in 2012, got some news that my father was diagnosed with ALS. Lou Gehrig's, called Lou Gehrig's disease, or ALS.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as a result of me working so much, my marriage was suffering. So we're about to go through a divorce, and just kind of come to find out, it's a pretty common story. That stress from building that agency can manifest itself in a lot of very negative ways, and it did in my life. And so at that point in time, I decided to start to remove myself from my agency. So I went down the path of developing out all the KPIs, the leadership structures, the hands-off kind of CEO kind of role. And I pulled it off. All right. I actually retired from my agency 2014, the middle of 2014, announced the CEO in the middle of 2015, and then began the exiting process at the beginning of 2016. And that exit was successful in June of 2016. The heart attack actually had nothing. The doctors say that a lot of times whenever I have a big moment and the stress in your life kind of really lowers as a result of selling your company, the stress really lowered, right? Yeah. They say that it's pretty common to have heart issues at that time because your body is kind of transitioning. But as far as it being like a tangible one-to-one thing, it wasn't quite like that. But the doctors did say that as your body releases that, and actually the stress, it actually builds up in your body. You think it releases, but it doesn't. It actually stays in there until it truly can release, meaning, your meditation or whatever works for you, right? Whatever it is that gets that out there. In my case, it was removing the day-to-day operations from my business because it was just stressing me out so much, right? But and then after I sold it, again, I had what's called the big one, the Widowmaker, right? And and so I took some time off, and I had retired from agency, so I kind of already had a lot of time off, but I took some more time off. And
some more time from your time.
What's that?
Time off from your time off.
Time off from my time off, and I literally just kind of cleaned up my diet. I started working out more, dove headfirst into being a dad with my daughter. And then coming around the beginning of 2017 is when I dove headfirst into building out the world's most comprehensive business and strategic focused coaching program, because a lot of the coaches out there, they will teach you how to, certain tactical things. They'll teach you how to do SEO, or they'll teach you how to do Facebook, or whatever it is. And I found that, albeit you have to have a lot of those skill sets, that's not what's going to make you successful. The skill set you have to have is to how to put in the systems and the processes so that can allow you to scale without everything being tethered to you. So I spent all of 2017 developing out content, over 80 tools, 12 online courses, and it literally is a roadmap on how to start an agency and build an agency to 7 figures. And it's called the Agency Success Roadmap. And that is our flagship product line. And that is what we do. So I sell that program, and then I do one-on-one coaching, and we'll be launching a mastermind probably the second half of this year. So,
yeah, amazing. Amazing. So when you made that shift to coaching, that was obviously you had that agency business foundations, having built and sort of exited your agency. Was that always a strength? Were you always sort of very business minded rather than being sort of tool and creator focused, which a lot of agencies tend to be? They're the designer or the coder, and then they have to, as you say, they don't have that business or the finance mechanism. Were you more on the business side always?
I really was. I never really gave a damn about the technology, honestly. The only thing I cared about on the technology side is did it help small business owners? My grandfather was an entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur. I was raised in the business environment. You know what I mean? So I did not know anything other than how, just like basic business. It's not basic actually. To me, I felt like it was basic, but it's actually pretty advanced because I was immersed in it my whole life. Literally from the age of, born, I didn't know any different, right? And but when I got into the digital world, I found that the majority of my competitors were very creative or programmers or whatever it was. And, I remember one story so vividly. He's a friend of mine, and I went to this friend of mine that's an amazing programmer, and I was like, man, dude, we need to partner up. You need to come in and run the service department, make sure everything's running like that. Let me go do what I do on the business side. He's like, oh, no, I can do business too. And I'm sure he could, you know what I'm talking about, but he studied programs, I studied business. So jump ahead 10 years, his agency's out of business, and mine, multiple 7 figures, and I sold it successfully. That's the difference between studying business as your craft, systems, processes, leaderships, as opposed to studying like a creative type skill set. Skill sets are at certain levels relatively easier to replace. Now, when you get up into very, very high level skill sets, that does change. It becomes, that's exactly, matter of fact, it inverts. It gets much more difficult to do. So I focused on building out my products and systems around services that just delivered overwhelming value, but were not super difficult to implement and deliver. And that allowed me to scale. That allowed me to remove myself from my agency. That allowed me to live a peace of mind, live a quality of life that honestly most agencies owners never get to, because they focus so much on the technical or the creative side.
Yeah, they get too immersed on the tool. They're on the tools too much, right? And
they fall in love with
working in the business rather than on the business, and not focused on the strategy, on the finance, and the direction, and the business, and sort of
they fall in love with their craft, right? So they don't understand that craft is a tool to get them to where they want to go. They fall in love with that craft, and they don't realize that, okay, I have got to evolve outside of this into an entrepreneur, and then eventually a CEO. Okay. You do not come out of your skill set, your craft, and straight into a CEO role. A lot of people think you do, but that is not how it works. You first have to prove that you can actually pass the entrepreneurial phase. Okay. And Jim Collins said it best. Is one of his books that changed my life. It's called Beyond Entrepreneurship. And that's where you graduate. This is the predecessor to the book, Going from Good to Great. And I think most of us are familiar with that, right? Where you grow from an entrepreneur to a CEO, and you replace yourself with systems and processes and all that fun stuff. And so first you got to prove that you can actually do it as an entrepreneur. Once you have proven that you can actually do it as an entrepreneur, okay, then you have to get out there and actually become a CEO. And those are completely different skill sets. So.
Yeah. So obviously, I think I know the answer to this question, but do you find that is the biggest challenge for agencies, where they are from my discussions just here on the show, talking to agency owners, there is a bit of a mix. Some I think a lot of people are coming to the industry now seeing it as a business opportunity. So some are bringing more of a business mindset, and then they're hiring freelancers, they're hiring team to do the creative. So I think there's a little bit more of that now, maybe than there was 10, 20 years ago, where it was, I love design, I'm creative, I'm a web developer, and I'm shifting from maybe freelance into, now I'm the CEO, now I'm the business, and now I'm running the business. Or I've been a creative in a big agency, didn't like that vibe, and I want to start my own thing, and now I've got a business and I've got to learn that business side. Is that the biggest challenge that you find, that a lot of agency owners just don't have that business now, and just the fundamental stuff?
I hate to say it, but yeah, that fun, a lot of times, man, business kind of gets a bad rap. You know what I mean? Like everybody talks as if business is all about profit, and that they're hardcore and they're slitting throats and all. It's just not the way it works. At least not in my agency, and not in the business that I work with. It was a family, but then that it does not cut back on the fact that it is a business, and you better run it like a business. It's got to have KPIs. It's got to have milestones. It's got to have, it's got to have the traditional stuff. Old school business was not broken, by the way. All of us in the digital world act as if the old school way of doing it was horrible. That is not the case at all. We got better tools now. Digital is better. I'm not saying it's duh. I built my life and around it, duh. But old school business practices and philosophies and frameworks, they still work. You just need to apply digital to it. So to answer your question, yes, the lack of understanding business and the head trash, or what I call limiting beliefs, that stem from that. Okay, a good example is the super creative designer at a larger agency. They can't stand all the rigid systems and processes, so they think they can change the world. They go out there and they do it, and they get out there and they get a couple of larger clients. Now they back themselves into a corner. They can't, they're fulfilling this work, but it's 100% tethered to them. They can't delegate it out. They can't because the work's such high level that no one else can do it. So now you've backed yourself into a corner to where you have an underpaid, glorified job that gives you the title of an entrepreneur. Okay.
Yeah. So, you made yourself a really shitty job.
You made yourself a really shitty job. That's exactly right. And almost always they get into that position because they are not thinking about it like a business. They're thinking about it as a craft or a skill set. And that has a tendency to back them into a corner. And again, I don't want to say it's just the business expertise. It's the limiting beliefs that come from lack of business expertise. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it's tough though. I will say I had more limiting beliefs than probably anybody, and I was raised by an entrepreneur. And so, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example. I'm trying to think of a good example, but just kind of get in your own way. Can't get out of your own way, kind of thing. So it's hard, but sometimes you got to cleanse the palate of what you think is the right way to go about doing it, and go do a little more homework. Research the business side, not the craft, but the business side. How do I set up a design department? Not how do I create a design, right? That's two different paths, right? Okay. And so how to set up a design department or a programming department will tell you, okay, I need a project manager. I need quality assurance. I need SOPs. I need project scope documents. It's going to talk about all the business stuff that I love coaching on. But it's not going to talk about how to set a pixel here and do a gradient here. And, they'll never even mention the words ever. And so it's just where you channel your energies, where you channel your energies is where your expertise is going to lie. And I would advise everyone out there to spend some time in sharpening that business tool set as much as you do on the skill set or craft side of things.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really it needs to be an intentional decision, right? I think if you are a freelancer, if you've got 5-10K a month, maybe you've got a couple clients, you're sort of in that freelancer micro agency, maybe you've got a little bit of a contractor, and you're looking at that next step of, all right, now I want to really scale this thing and become an agency and bring in staff and grow. That really is a quite serious inflection point of, as you were saying, I now need to take this hat off, put on the business hat. I either need to learn that skill set or I need to hire that skill set in. It's as long as agencies are sort of intentional about that, and they need to understand exactly like you're saying, there's going to be some limiting belief that comes up. There's potentially going to be self-sabotage, or all of the mental and psychological and emotional stuff that we're really not aware of happens when we step into that like massive discomfort zone, right? We step out of our freelancer doing a couple of things into, holy shit, now I'm the CEO, right? I'm the CEO, I'm the business owner, I've got all this other responsibility, I've got to pay bills. That there's a whole lot of personal stuff that then comes out, and the self-talk changes and the self-sabotage starts, and all of that stuff can start to happen. So I think it's really important to understand that that's going to happen, and have somebody like yourself on your side to help you work through that stuff, because it happens. And I think a lot of potentially a lot of people that make that step don't recognize that all of that personal stuff is going to come out and start to play into the business as well.
Yeah, it did, man. Self-sabotage, limiting beliefs. I was a king. That's how I learned all this stuff, I mean, like...
Yeah, exactly. That's how we all learn, right? We go through it.
Right. And again, when you and I were building our agencies, there were no books. There were no coaches. There were no college courses on how to do this. We were very much cowboying it up, making it up as we were going along, right? And so... again, you and I were kind of in that first wave of successful agencies that came out of that, between 2000 and 2015, that first generation agency, right? Or even going back to late 90s, but again, we kind of had to make it up out there. But there's one other part to this that I want to throw out there is that when you're in your skill set position, the designer, programming, whatever it might be, running ads or whatever it might be, when you switch over to the business side and become an entrepreneur, unfortunately, all the stuff that you learned in that skill set position is probably going to hurt you in that entrepreneurial position. And I guarantee you, when you go from the entrepreneurial to the CEO position, almost everything you did as an entrepreneur, that dynamic, moving, shaking kind of thing, it's going to hurt you as a CEO. So when you pivot over to there, the change begins at the end of your comfort zone. A friend of mine, I don't know if he stole that or made it up or not, but I thought it was brilliant. Maybe I need to find out the source on that. Stephen Tucker is the one who told me about it. Again, I'm not sure if he owns that or not, but it's spot on. It's spot on. Change begins at the end of your comfort zone. And so you have to step out of your comfort zone and get into that entrepreneurial realm. And you have to go through the stuff you don't like. It's just that simple. If you want to achieve your goals, you are going to have to go through some mud. You have to go through some situations you're not a fan of. And if you run from those type of situations, then you might want to look in the mirror and find out whether or not being an entrepreneur is actually what you're cut out to do. Okay. Being an entrepreneur, I don't know, the numbers change depending on how you define entrepreneurialism and everything else, but 2 to 5% make it through the first 5 years. Okay. Depending on how you define it. And now what I do know for sure, out of that 2 to 5% that actually made it, only 1% of them make it to the 7-figure mark. That's an
pretty low percentages.
Very, 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 very small number. Okay. So it's not a bad thing to admit to yourself that maybe I'm just not cut out to be an entrepreneur or a CEO, and stay in that what I call a successful freelancer realm. Get a couple friends or a couple contractors to work with you that you trust, right? And just give them whole projects and take a cut off the top, right? There's nothing wrong with that at all. You can make a wonderful living doing that and there's zero wrong with that. But having that internal conversation with you, like, is this really something I want to do? Do I really want to go down the path of being a business owner, or do I enjoy the design and the craft side? And for full disclosure, one of the many reasons I sold my agency is because I missed being in the trenches with small business owners. I missed consulting them. I missed the one-on-one time with them. All I ever dealt with were attorneys and CPAs and leadership teams and all that. And I made my bed. I was happy to lay in it. I don't want to sit here and say, oh, poor, that was not exactly opposite of the case. But when I started doing some soul searching, what did I want to do when I grew up, right? I realized that I thoroughly enjoy working one-on-one with other business owners. That's why I'll never get rid of my one-on-one coaching program. I will always keep 7 to 10 students very close, and it satisfies a core part of who I am, that I'm really helping individuals and moving the needle for them. Now, of course, I have other programs and we'll scale up with those, but I will never get rid of the one-on-one program. Whereas most coaches, the first thing they cut out is the one-on-one program, right? They go to the multiplier, the mastermind, the group coach, that route. And I don't blame them. And I'm going to be coming out with that stuff. Don't get me wrong. I will be coming out with that stuff. But I on purpose led with my one-on-one coaching, and I've maintained that, and I'll stick to it for that right there. After graduating into the CEO realm and successfully graduating into the CEO realm, I realized I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I'm an entrepreneur. I am a dynamic entrepreneur. It's who I am. And that dynamic entrepreneur feels like he has got to give back, at least in my case. And I can't do that acutely while I'm doing it just by the numbers. I want to be in the trenches. And so that's one of the reasons I put it. That's one of the reasons I started my coaching program. So
brilliant. I think that's another super critical point to understand is what do you actually want? And I think there's a lot of younger generation. There's people out there that are looking at your Grant Cardones and your 7-figure agencies and your big BBDOs and your WPPs and your massive agencies, and they're looking at that going, oh, I want a piece of that, not maybe understanding what that actually means and understanding like do you actually need to do 8 figures? You can start, as you say, you can have a great little freelance business, do couple $100,000 a year, which is better than any job you're going to have, and have a bit of freedom. And if that's what you want, that's a whole different thing to a 7-figure agency with 30 staff and multiple locations and servicing $1 million accounts. And
people associate quality of life with success. Okay. And obviously success helps you with your quality of life, but you can achieve an unbelievably successful quality of life without being the big CEO of a big company. And be careful what you ask for. And like you were saying, the Grant Cardones and building the 8-figure agencies, like just be careful what you ask for. Okay. So, so again, you know, if you love the design, if you're just a creative genius, then surround yourself with a couple of creative geniuses, become that just beast mode, successful freelancer, run 250, 300, 400,000. You personally are making 150, 200,000. Everybody with you is making 75 to 100,000. It's a great business, a very successful business by pretty much all standards. And you're living the exact quality of life that you want to live with the freedom. Okay. With responsibility comes, you know, handcuffs, basically. So when you're running these large companies, spotlights on you, you know, there's just a lot going on there that I personally wasn't a fan of. You know, and so just think about that a little bit. Don't get caught up in the hype per se, right? Dig a little bit deeper, just dig a little bit deeper. And I think when you do that, you might realize that sometimes that might not be for some people out there. So.
Yeah. And I think also that the playing field has changed a lot in the last 20 years. I mean, even just yesterday, I was had a girl on the show, Taylor, and she runs literally an outsourced client management service. So literally, she will replace your entire client management, client comms, all of your suits, all in one. So you could technically, I mean, these days with the way just the world operates, you could be the one-man creative, and you could just hire in somebody to look after all of your client acquisition, someone to look after your entire funnel, someone to look after the back end and the finance, and someone to look after the accounts and the client comms and the suit part of the business, and just sit and do what you do and have everything outsourced and managed. So there are multiple other ways that you can grow. You can run, as you said, 400, 500, 600K a year doing what you love and not having to get into that other stuff unless you really feel like that's who you are and what you want to do. But I think people can, as you say, can get caught up in that hype of being the CEO and having a 7-figure agency. That's what I want. But it all really comes down to self-awareness, right? Having that self-awareness, say, do I actually want to be that person? Do I actually have what it takes to go on that journey to 7 figures, right? Do I have the character? Do I have the aptitude? Is that what will I enjoy that? And as you said, you can get to that point where, like yourself, you get to that pinnacle and you're like, I'm not enjoying this anymore.
Right.
It's not what I love to do. And somehow I thought I was going to go here, but the agency's now over here. And this is my value, but the agency's over here somewhere. And there's this massive gap. There's this divergence. And that's where self-sabotage and burnout and overwhelm and all that, and health issues and that kind of thing can start to grow, because you haven't predefined what do I actually want and what do I love to do.
Yeah, what's your purpose?
And building off of that.
No doubt about it. You better define that purpose in the beginning. What makes you happy? Again, a lot of people try to separate business and personal, and I think that's naive. And when you're the entrepreneur CEO, now, whenever you're a W-2 employee, you check in, clock out. Yeah, totally. You can totally separate them, no doubt about it. But if you're a business owner, that's naive. There's no way, because
it's one and the same.
It's one and the same. Okay, it just is what it is. And so, so with that being said, just kind of just do some soul searching, figure out exactly what you want to be when you grow up, and then go that route. I mean, you're spot on. You can definitely get some white label providers out there to help you get to 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. Be careful with the quality assurance on those. Just make sure that you have a quality. Make sure you can control the client communication and the quality assurance internally. Okay, so become more of a project management agency than anything else. Just don't completely trust white labels, because they have profit margins they have to adhere to as well. Now, you will, if you ever want to scale, you will probably have to pull out of that white label market when you get to about the 1.2 million. But that can definitely get you a long way there without having to kill yourself with employee hiring and training and all that fun stuff. So,
yeah, and then that's a whole other thing, right? That's something we haven't even talked about. Is you got the business, you got the finance, you still got a bit of your craft. Now you got people, and you got emotional intelligence, and now you're having to hire and fire and work with people, and that's another thing, right? That's a whole other layer of complexity on top of the complexity of all that other stuff that you're now having to do. Now you've got to manage people. And that was something that definitely I noticed, and maybe you noticed this too, that once you shift that gear and you get into, right now I've got 30, 40 staff, I'm not doing the tools anymore. I'm not even doing I'm managing people. I'm managing relationships, and that's a whole other skill set.
Yep. Oh yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So, I had a full, no doubt about it. We had HR departments, accounting departments. Every single employee is no doubt special. They are going to have very specific and special requests about their lives. Again, they're not working for the hell of it. They're working to fulfill whatever their goals are. And so you can't just be moving. And I made this mistake. I moved so fast, I wouldn't do annual reviews and certain things like that. I just kind of gloss over them because I'm keeping the doors open. Right. So, and that come up to bit me. I had a couple employees that were like, dude, they requested them. And I was like, oh man, that makes perfect sense. Duh. So anyway, I wound up delegating it and we fixed it and it's all good. But it's those little things like that you don't realize that they're going to pop up, as you grow. Understand that whenever you get to, 10 to 12 employees and above, you have to bring in-house training, in-house culture, everything. I mean, everything comes in-house, and that is a colossal undertaking. Very expensive. You got to develop out what's called the middle management layer. Okay. And so, again, just do some soul searching and find out if that's what you want to do, because the more successful you get, okay, the less freedoms you have until you get to the point where you can completely remove yourself from the business. But understand that, again, less than 1% will ever get to the 7-figure mark. Now, the people who actually sell and retire from their businesses, it's got to be probably less than 10% of that one. But I don't know. It's an unbelievably small number. Okay. So go into it with your eyes wide open and just make sure that you're aware of where do I want to end up. And I'm going to tell you right now that'll make a big, big difference on where you end up. And so just make sure you kind of define your goals, your purpose. Do I want to be able to spend time with my family? I want to make sure I afford to put them in a good college. I want to live on the beach, or, whatever that is. Okay. And then set the goals for that, that can also maintain your personal happiness. So going big is what everybody talks about, but going big is not what most people deep down want to do. They just want to have a good quality of life, and they want to have spend time with their kids and make enough money to travel and do, enjoy their life. Right. And so I call it the sizzle, not the steak. So don't buy into the sizzle so much. Find out what that steak's about before you start to buy into anything, right?
Yeah. Really understand what that is and what that's going to mean for you, for your life. If what I want is to spend time with my family and have that time freedom, becoming the CEO, building a 7-8 figure agency probably isn't the fastest route to that goal, right? So it's really, I love what you're saying. It really just comes down to start with the end in mind. Even if you're halfway down the journey and you're starting to feel that tension, it's always a good time to come back and go, what do I actually want from this? What am I creating? And then start from that place. And as you said, from there, then build out that big goal, then, reverse engineer that back to, okay, what am I doing today to get me towards that? But really always having that North Star and kind of always adjusting for that as you're going along. But I think a lot of agencies can miss that, and they just sort of power on without knowing really where they're going. And as you sort of said earlier, they can just end up going, okay, now I've got 30 staff and 40 clients and I'm over servicing and I'm burnt out and I'm overwhelmed. And how did I get here?
How do I unravel this beast? What happened? How did I end up here? Exactly. And you made a comment that I use all the time. Begin with the end in mind. Look, I mean, that sounds so simple, but it's very difficult to do. I'm going to tell you, because you begin with the end in mind, then it requires a lot of planning, a lot of thinking up front, and a lot of people just take action. And by the way, I'm a big fan of just taking action. That's how I became successful. Is I would just take action. Now that I'm on the other side of that tunnel, okay, now that I've come out the other side of that tunnel, I can advise someone with just and let you know exactly what that looks like now, right? And before you go down that tunnel, if you can begin with the end in mind, meaning I want to end up here, then it can make that tunnel a little shorter. It can make it easier. It can changes everything. It changes the whole dynamic. And I'm telling you, you will be happier if you make that right decision. But this brings us back to the head trash and limiting beliefs. I have to admit, I didn't know that I didn't want that until I had it, right? And so, and then I got it, and I'm like, what the hell? It's not what I thought I was going to get, But it was, again, we look, good, Entrepreneur Magazine awards and Partner of the Year awards. Dude, it was still a very successful agency, so I'm not complaining at all. I'm just saying, looking back on it, if I'm coaching someone, advising someone, I just had somebody sign up new for my program, and they asked me, how do we get started? I said, well, the first thing that we do is I'm going to send you through what's called health and wellness exam. It's like gets about 120 questions, and it gives me the base knowledge of where you're at. And then we're going to have a discovery call. And in that discovery call, we're just going to talk about you, about your life, about where do you want to be in 12, 24, 36 months. Okay. How does your business fit into that? And so we just talk about, you as an individual, as a person, where do you want to be? How old are your kids? Some of them are about to be empty nesters, and they want to spend, the last 15, 20 years in their work career blowing it up. Some just want to honestly work from 8 to 12 in the morning doing design work and then go hang out on the beach all day. So where do you want to be personally? And that's where we start, right? That's where we start. And then we'll isolate the big three. And the big three are the three things that are going to hopefully get you there. Get you started down the road to being there. I'm sorry, not get you there, but get you started down the road to being there. And then we roll up our sleeves and get to it. But I don't start. I have found that a lot of other coaches will just come in, throw you into a program and say, go, right? But they never have actually asked the question, like, where do you want to be? And I have found that to be a very wise thing to do, especially when people are going to be spending that much money with you, and you're going to be spending that much time and money to get there. So,
love it. And that's I think that has to be the approach if you're genuinely trying to meet somebody where they are and help them get to where they want to go. You're not saying, hey, let's go build a 7-figure agency and here's the system to build it and here's all the stuff, and that might not be what they actually want.
Yeah, exactly. And ironically, when we get in there and I start asking those kind of questions, most of them say, like, you know what, I've never had a coach ask me these kind of questions before. And I'm like, well, first I'm like, thanks, I think, and then secondly, as we go through that process and I find out, where do you want to be? I've got 2 kids, they're twins, they're 2-year-olds, and I want to be able to coach their soccer team, and I want to be able to spend. My dad used to do that with me all the time, or whatever it might be. And a lot of times, when we get out of that call, a lot of times, they're like, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, you're right. A $500,000 business is awesome. I'll have 4 to 6 employees or contractors, or a stable, for lack of a better term, and I can trust those people. If the stress is low, I only work on the projects I want to work on. You just basically learn how to drive business, and at that point, you can do exactly what I just said, relatively pretty easy. It's not super hard to do that. So you got to put in the time. Don't get me wrong, but it's not super hard to do that. You can easily do that in 12 to 24 months. If you know the right steps to take. If you don't know the right steps, it'll probably take you more like 5 to 7 years. But if you know the right steps, then it can get done in about 12 to 24 months. And like I said, it's begin with the end in mind. It's such a simple concept, but a lot of people just see the goal and they start to attack the goal, and they don't know why they're attacking the goal. So,
or if that's the goal that they actually want.
That's even the goal they want, right? Exactly.
Someone they saw it on Instagram and went, well, that's what everyone wants, so let's go get that.
Oh, he's in a Lamborghini. I want a Lamborghini. So, what you don't know. What you don't know is he went to the car dealership. That's not his Lamborghini, probably. You won't ever see any of that stuff with me. Anytime you ever see me on a boat or a car or whatever, I probably legitimately own it, or it's legitimately a friend of mine like that. But you're not going to see me have to sprawled out over a Lamborghini. That's not going to happen. So, I don't know, and I still to this day. I understand that people perceive that as successful, but that's so overplayed now. I think it's just ridiculous.
It's hopefully people can be more discerning with their decisions, but I guess that's why
authentic. Just be authentic. You know what I mean? Just like just be authentic. So
and that's why people like you exist, Lee, and you're here to help people on that process, as you say, shortcut those years down to less years or months and get them on that ball path, get them on the path. Here's all the stuff to avoid. Let's go down this pathway that's going to get you where you want to go faster and with a lot less hassle and stress.
That's it.
Thank you so much. This has been an absolute blast. I knew there was going to be a ton of value. And for those of you listening at home, wherever you're listening, there's been a ton of value in this episode from Lee. So, Lee, if people, I know that you have your shameless plug on your show. So we do a similar thing here on the show. So where can people come and find you? There's a couple places up on the screen here, but where's the best place for people to drop in and get connected with you?
Actually, those are the best places right there. Marketingagencycoach.com, my Facebook group, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. We're all on all of YouTube. I will say the best one is definitely just go to my Facebook group. There's about 2,400 agency owners in there, and opt into that. It's a great way. And in there, we're always putting out like webinars and things like that. So that's where you can really learn a lot about who we are and what we do. So,
yeah, cool. And as always, I'll drop those links in the show notes so you can get connected to Lee and go learn more about him, learn how to grow your agency the way that you want to and create the agency that you actually want to own and run. Lee, thank you so much for swinging by. It's been an amazing episode. Really enjoyed it. A lot of really, really great information for the folks out there that are wherever they are on their agency journey. If they're just starting out, if they're looking to make that jump from freelance into more of an agency setup, and to distill it down, get really clear on what you actually want to do, and then get somebody on your side that can help you make the right decisions to shortcut that process as much as possible.
Definitely. And I'm one of the big mistakes, limiting beliefs I had was not hiring a coach sooner. Okay. And this is obviously self-serving, but it's self-serving for both of us. But I'm going to tell you right now, man, that if they're looking back on it, if there was one thing that I could just say, you know what, don't be an idiot, do this sooner. It's definitely hiring a coach that's done what you want. And please read up on their success stories. These people are painting success stories about how I ran the operations or all these different things. If they did not found it, build it, and sell it, don't hire them, period. They do not understand the all phases of what's called I call them success journey, your agency success journey. And there are organic maturations that have to happen there. You're going to have to mature from phase to phase to phase. And only someone who has founded, built, ran, and then retired and exited an agency can understand those phases. The rest, everybody who says any different is bullshit. I guarantee it, right? And Chris, you've done all that. So Chris is great. I'm great. There are a few other ones out there that are phenomenal at it, but do your homework. Do just one more layer deep dive. Okay. I don't care how special that offer is. They will probably sell it to you again tomorrow. Okay. Just take an extra deep dive and make sure they've actually physically done what you want to do before you hire a coach. So.
Yeah. Love that. Great place to leave off because nothing is going to help you like experience from the trenches.
Yes.
Right? Having done it, had that visceral experience of what that actually means as a human being to do that thing.
Yes.
That's where you can really get the most leverage and the most learning from.
There is no substitute for it. No doubt about it. No book, no course, no nothing will ever substitute that. It's just too much knowledge. So.
Yeah. Love it. So please hit Lee up. Go connect with him. Thanks for tuning in as always. This has been a really fun episode for me. I'm sure for you listening, watching at home, it's been really insightful too. Lee, as always, love to stay connected with you, mate. Love what you're doing. Always great chatting. I'm sure we could keep going on for another hour, but we'll cut it here so the folks can get on with their lives when they're sitting at home listening. But appreciate you, brother. Thanks for dropping by.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really, really appreciate you having me on, and look forward to working with you over the years. So,
my pleasure.
Right.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Lee, for dropping by. We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye, everyone.